Now that I'm 32, I wake up to a vibrant garden that I created every day. My grandmother's final gift to me was my small, comfortable home surrounded by flowers and foliage. This location is more than simply a piece of land and a structure. It's a monument to a struggle I've waged against my own blood since I was a young child. Being the proprietor of the neighborhood eatery was more than simply a profession to our family. It was an identity that was inherited like a holy torch. Mike, my brother, was all over it like a fish in water. Me, my parents, and Mike said I was the odd one out, the black sheep with her head in the ground, literally. They would scoff. A gardener, as though the phrase left them with a terrible taste in their mouths. Talks over dinner were a minefield. "Eva, you look so beautiful." At the dinner table, dirt under your nails. "That's not right," my father would complain, his displeasure weighing as much as his palm on the back of my seat. Mom would nod, her gaze flitting from mine to Mike's tidy, well-groomed hands. "Eva, he is correct. You are no longer a child. It's time you stopped playing in the mud and started considering your future in the restaurant." Grandma was the only one who understood, the one person who regarded the dirt beneath my nails as a badge of honor rather than a sign of disobedience. She served as my safe haven during the storm. She would interject, "Let the girl be," her tone steady yet firm, against the growing wave of disillusionment from my parents. "Don't you see that she has a gift? This isn't just dirt," she would say, waving her hand over the garden. "This is life. This is passion." It was Grandma who first introduced me to the joys of gardening. She would converse with plants as if they were old acquaintances, each with its own peculiarities and requirements. I felt liberated and understood in her garden, where we would spend hours together. She even brought me to flower shows, where I was able to witness the wonders that could be produced using only dirt, seeds, and love. She would exclaim, "Look at this, Eva," gesturing to an especially beautiful display. "You could perform even better at this. You have both the heart and the sight for it." However, at home, Grandma's support was like a yell overshadowed by a murmur. Mike and my parents thought that my passion for gardening was just a passing phase that I would ultimately grow out of. However, I was aware of this. It was where I belonged, the sensation of dirt between my fingers, the excitement of watching something grow out of nothing. I was planting some new plants I'd chosen one day when Mike appeared, leaning against the doorframe with that certain expression. "Are you really going to keep doing this? Have fun like a child in the dirt. When will you become sincere, Eva?" I recall gazing up at him, rebellious, my face smeared with dirt. "This is serious, Mike, more than you'll ever understand." Like everyone else, he simply shook his head and left, leaving me to continue with my childish interests. Their looks and remarks didn't make it easy for me to give it up. It was a part of who I was, not just a desire, and every flowering plant and every altered piece of land I worked on was a silent triumph. You would have thought I had declared I was relocating to Mars the day I told my family I was going to start a landscaping business instead of working in the family restaurant. Mom's face turned scarlet, just like a ripe tomato. "Dad," he simply appeared to have ingested something acidic. "You're doing what now?" Mom's hands were all over the place like stray birds trying to get away, and her voice reached octaves I had no idea existed. I tried to maintain my composure as I said, "I want to be a landscape designer. It's what I love, what I'm good at." Dad gave the silverware a violent smack on the table. "Gardening? That's not my daughter's kind of job. You should assist in managing the eatery." This is absurd. Although it was not surprising, their response nonetheless hurt. Grandma intervened at that point, her soothing voice cutting through the tense situation. "Let's all just pause for a moment, please. Eva obviously has a gift, and she is quite passionate about it. Why not give her an opportunity to clarify?" I wrote everything down, including how it felt to have dirt beneath my nails, how satisfying it was to watch something I had planted develop, and all of the ideas that were just waiting to be realized. I talked about the plants I wanted to explore, the colors and textures, and the imaginary garden I had created for Grandma's backyard. Grandma had a slight smile on her face as I saw her nod. However, Mom and Dad, it appeared as though they were watching an unsubtitled foreign movie. Dad finally gave me a warning. "It's the door or the restaurant," he stated, his voice as icy as ice. Grandma, God bless her, grabbed my hand at that point. She declared, "She'll stay with me," and that was that. The very following day, I moved in with her. The home of Grandma was a refuge. Every day we dug, planted, and designed in the garden. She gave me advice, listened to my ideas, and together we designed a place that reflected our respective spirits. She stated to Eva, "You know you've got something special," while she was digging her hands into the ground on one of those days. "Your affection for this? You will go someplace with it." Then an incredible thing transpired. Grandma's next-door neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, had noticed us at work and asked if I might help with her sad excuse for a garden. I leaped at the opportunity. I gave it my all because it was my first serious project. Something else happened when Mrs. Henderson's desolate plot was transformed into a colorful, alive sanctuary. She gave me $500 because she was so happy. My very first payment for doing what I loved was something I couldn't believe. Grandma proudly responded, "I told you," her eyes glistening. "You're going to make a name for yourself." Me and her decided to celebrate alone in the neighborhood cafe. Despite being a small gathering, it had the atmosphere of a victory party. We discussed our next major project, her garden's focal point, while enjoying coffee and cake. "To your first job," Granny said, lifting her coffee cup in celebration. "To many more," I answered, feeling lighter than I have in a long time from my family's expectations. While I laid in my former room at Grandma's that night, I came to a realization. This was only the start. I felt like I was finally where I was meant to be for the first time in my life, even if the road ahead was unknown and even frightening. It was like traveling to another planet to pursue a career in landscape design after moving to the city. I felt aliver than ever as I absorbed all the beauty and wisdom I could. Grandma was my rock through it all. Whether I was at home for the holidays or we were just catching up over the phone, we would talk for hours on end. She was always interested in learning about my studies, my projects, and the new plants I could not stop talking about. But what about Mike, Mom, and Dad? Radio silence. It was as though I had disappeared from their lives the instant I made my decision. Then Grandma went away and everything was different. Like a freight train, it struck me. She was my strongest ally and my rock. The final time I saw my family was at the funeral, when I found out that Grandma had left me everything, including her home, garden, and some savings. Even though no one else did, she had faith in me and my dream. But that's when the storm hit. My family, already distant, turned colder. They had plans for Grandma's house, dreams of selling it to pour money into the restaurant. When they found out about the will, all hell broke loose. "You can't be serious." Dad bellowed over the phone when I told them I was keeping the house and using Grandma's savings to fund my career. "That money, that house, it's meant for the family, for the restaurant." Mom's voice was no less fierce. "How can you be so selfish? Your grandmother would be ashamed of you, hoarding everything for yourself." Even Mike, who rarely got involved, chimed in. "Come on, Eva, don't do this to the family. We need that money." Their words stung, but I stood my ground. Grandma believed in me, in what I'm doing. She wanted me to have the house, to make something of myself. I'm honoring her wishes, whether you like it or not. The line went silent for a moment before Dad's voice cut through, colder than I'd ever heard it. "If you go through with this, don't bother calling us your family anymore. You're on your own, Eva." And just like that, the decision was made for me. I lost more than Grandma that day. I lost my family. But in the midst of that loss, I found a resolve I didn't know I had. So I poured myself into my work, into transforming her garden into a tribute to her memory. It wasn't just about plants and designs. It was about proving to myself, and maybe to them, that I could make it on my own, that I was more than just a family outcast, more than just a gardener. Years rolled by thick and fast, like seasons changing in my garden. My old but snug grandma's house became a slice of paradise. Friends became my new family, filling the house with laughter and warmth, especially during our legendary barbecue nights. Then, out of the blue, a wedding invitation landed in my mailbox. It was from my brother, Mike, a wedding at the family restaurant, the very place I drifted apart from what used to be my family. My heart sank a little, memories both sweet and sour bubbling up. "I can't believe Mike's getting hitched," I mumbled to myself, flipping the invitation in my hands. That evening, my backyard was buzzing with the usual suspects, my friends grilling and chilling. I tossed the invitation on the table, a silent announcement. "You gotta go," Jess said, snagging a burnt sausage off the grill, her words blunt, no room for argument. "Yeah, show him how you flourished, Eva, like one of your gardens," added Sam, his grin encouraging but knowing the turmoil I felt. I sighed, the weight of the decision pressing down on me, but stepping back there after everything. "It's not about them, Eva. It's about closure for you, and who knows, maybe a fresh start," Jess nudged, always the optimist. Their words, a mix of wisdom and whiskey, finally got to me. "All right, I'll go. For Grandma, if nothing else," I conceded, my voice a mix of determination and dread. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations. I found myself in front of a mirror, trying on a dress that felt like armor. It was beautiful in a way that whispered confidence and grace, not just to the world, but to me too. "I'm doing this," I whispered to my reflection, a promise to the woman staring back. Choosing a gift for Mike was another battle. What do you gift someone who's drifted so far away they're more a memory than a brother? In the end, I settled on a rare plant, a symbol of growth and resilience, something only I would give, a nod to our shared past and my unyielding love for green and growing things. The family restaurant, decked out in garish decorations, felt both familiar and alien. I'd hoped for a fresh start, or at least some semblance of civility. That hope shattered the moment I caught sight of my family. Mike spotted me first. "Well, ain't this a surprise? Thought you'd be too busy playing in the dirt to remember your only brother's wedding," he said loud enough for a circle of guests to hear, his smirk wide and unwelcoming. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Congratulations, Mike. Wishing you both the best." My attempt at diplomacy fell flat, his smirk turning into a sneer. Mom and Dad were next, their expressions a mix of shock and disapproval. "Eva, you actually came. Thought you'd consider this too mundane for your exquisite tastes," Mom said, her voice laced with sarcasm, barely concealing her disdain. Dad's eyes scanned me from head to toe, his disappointment palpable. "Hope you've left your garden long enough to remember how to behave at a family event," he added, his tone harsh and unforgiving. Then came Mike's fiancée, Clara, eyeing me like I was a specimen rather than a person. "So you're the infamous sister. Mike said you'd rather plant flowers than be part of the family." "Can't say he was wrong," she said, her voice dripping with contempt, her hand resting possessively on Mike's arm. The conversation around us paused, the guests' attention now fixed on the unfolding drama. I felt their stares, curious and judgmental, as if I were an exhibit on display. Trying to salvage some dignity, I responded, "Just wanted to wish you both happiness, that's all." But the barbs kept coming. "Make sure you don't dirty up the place, gardener. Wouldn't want the guests thinking we let just anyone in," Mike quipped, the guests around him chuckling uncomfortably. Feeling smaller by the second, I was directed to a table in the corner, away from the family, away from any semblance of belonging. The table was clearly an afterthought, barely decorated and awkwardly positioned. As I took my seat, the whispers grew louder, the glances more pitying. I heard she chose weeds over family, Someone whispered not too far from me. Imagine missing out on real life because you prefer dirt. Another snickered. The laughter and music swelled, a stark contrast to the coldness at my solitary corner. I was an outsider here, surrounded by people who knew me only by the scornful stories they'd heard. As the wedding dragged on, with me tucked away in my corner like an afterthought, the atmosphere started to shift. The night was filled with the usual wedding fare, dancing, toasts, and a bit too much alcohol for some. Yet amidst the revelry, an unexpected moment of redemption emerged, catching me off guard. It happened just as I was contemplating making my quiet exit, unnoticed and unmissed. The mayor of our town, a guest of honor due to his ties with the bride's family, took to the stage for his speech. His presence was a big deal, lending a certain prestige to the event. I'd met him a few times professionally, given my work on several city park projects, but I doubted he'd remember me. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice commanding attention. The room hushed, glasses pausing midair as everyone turned to listen. As he spoke about community and coming together, his gaze suddenly found mine. He asked Mike and his fiancée with a puzzled look, "Why is the famous landscape designer sitting all by herself, like she's been put into timeout?" Mike and Clara glanced at each other, clearly clueless. That's when the mayor pointed straight at me. You could have heard a pin drop. My family looked like they'd seen a ghost. The mayor beckoned me over. "Folks, we're lucky tonight. Right here, we've got the talent behind our city's most beautiful parks. Not to mention she just snagged a cool $300,000 from the city for her next project." Applause filled the room, echoing off the walls as I made my way to the front. I took the mic, feeling a mix of pride and nerves. "Thanks, Mr. Mayor," I started. "It's all about making our city a better place, one garden at a time." Then, turning to my family, I couldn't help but add, "Mike, Clara, congrats. Seems like you two are a perfect match." A light jab at their earlier coldness. To my parents, I said, "Hope you're not too embarrassed by your gardener daughter now." Their faces were a picture of shock and burning shame. The room was buzzing, whispers spreading like wildfire. I could feel the shift in the air, the looks of surprise and newfound respect from the guests. I returned to my table, no longer the outcast, but the evening's unexpected star. The mayor and a few other city bigwigs joined me, their interest genuine. The night took on a new flavor, conversation swirling around future projects and the sudden spotlight on me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like just the odd one out in my family. I was Eva, the landscape designer who'd carved her own path, one that even the mayor admired. And as for my family, well, let's just say the evening gave them a lot to think about. The evening of my brother's wedding unfolded into something far beyond the awkward family reunion I'd anticipated. Surrounded by the city's elite, I found myself in deep conversation with the mayor and others about the potential for new ambitious landscaping projects throughout the city. His enthusiasm was infectious, and for a moment, I allowed myself to dream bigger than I ever had before. "Eva, your vision for the new park downtown is exactly what we need to breathe life back into that area," the mayor said, his eyes alight with excitement. "Your ability to see the beauty in neglected spaces is remarkable." "Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe every corner of our city has potential. It's just about finding the right way to bring it out," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. The conversations didn't stop there. The head of the local TV channel, intrigued by my story, pitched the idea of a feature segment. "Eva, your journey from a misunderstood gardener to a celebrated landscape designer is inspiring. How do you feel about sharing your story with our viewers, showing them how following your passion can lead to unexpected success?" he suggested, his camera crew already imagining the shots. "I'm humbled, really. If my story can inspire even one person to follow their heart, it would be worth it," I answered, the reality of my influence beginning to dawn on me. As the night wore on, the mayor's disappointment in his niece and my family's behavior became unmistakably clear. His confrontation with Clara was a moment of vindication I hadn't known I needed. "Clara, I expected better. The way you and your new family have treated Eva is unacceptable. I cannot, in good conscience, support the restaurant financially or otherwise. Respect and kindness are values we should all uphold," he stated firmly, leaving Clara and my brother visibly shaken. Riding the wave of the evening's revelations, I returned home with my head full of possibilities and my heart light. Despite the undercurrents of family drama, that lightness was short-lived, however, as Mike's unexpected visit a week later brought me crashing back to reality. "Eva, we're struggling. The restaurant? We're in deep. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. Can you help us out?" Mike's request was desperate, his pride swallowed by necessity. "Mike, coming here asking for money now after everything, you really don't get it, do you? I built my life, my career on my own despite how you all treated me. No, I won't bail you out," I said, my voice steady, my resolve unwavering. His departure was followed by a call from our parents. Their tones were sugary, their intentions transparent. "Eva, sweetheart, we've been thinking about you, how successful you've become. We're so proud. Maybe you could share a bit of that success, help the family business." They cooed, their words dripping with insincerity. "You think you can ignore me, belittle my passion, and then, when I make something of myself, you call to ask for money? I'm doing well. Thanks for finally noticing, but I won't be your safety net." "Goodbye," I replied, hanging up with a mix of anger and liberation. The chapter of seeking approval from those who never understood me was closing. Ahead lay a path filled with potential, paved by my own achievements and the respect of those who truly valued my work. It's often said that life has an odd way of coming full circle. Brick by symbolic brick, my family's restaurant was collapsing while I was out there planting roots. As it happens, the opulent way of life and the false impression of wealth that Mike and my parents were determined to uphold were only delusions. They had not been making investments in the company. Rather, they were squandering money on ostentatious gadgets and ostentatious means to flaunt their status. Ultimately, the restaurant failed, taking them down with it, submerged in debt and dashed hopes. The rift did not last in Mike's marriage. Clara was not going to be there to witness his fall from grace. She had married him believing she was getting the future king of the neighborhood eating scene. With no wife or restaurant to call his own, just a mountain of debt and regret, she abandoned him to flounder in the chaos that had become his life. However, everything was blossoming splendidly on my end. Orders were coming in left and right. I was on speed dial with the mayor's office, trying to green every inch of our town. Not only that, but private clients also desired a share of the enchantment. My schedule was a vibrant jumble of tasks, events, and gatherings with some of the most intriguing people I had ever encountered. As soon as the TV commercial went on, I was no longer just the neighborhood gardener turned hero. Instead, I became a legend and an inspiration to anyone who dared to have wilder dreams. People adored it and showered my social media accounts with encouragement, sharing their own tales of pursuing their aspirations in the face of adversity. One day, as she was grinning and thumbing through her phone, my assistant Lucy, a bright-eyed green thumb, asked me, "Did you see the comments on that post? You're like a celebrity now." I shook my head and laughed, all because I like playing in the dirt. As always, Lucy reminded me of the greater picture. "It's more than that, and you know it," she shot back. "You're encouraging folks to pursue their passions. That is very significant." Of course, she was correct. What began in my grandmother's backyard has developed into something I never would have thought possible. And speaking of Grandma, I couldn't go a day without thinking of her. Her faith in me was evident in every arrangement of plants I made and every sketch I created. Regarding my family, well, we were silent for a long time. After all of that, they were too proud, or maybe too ashamed, to ask for help. The same grapevine that probably told me about my triumphs also told me about their troubles. I had a thought one peaceful evening as I was looking over the blueprints for a new community garden. They were still my family in spite of the hurt, the distance, and the very different roads our lives had gone. Perhaps it was time to reach out and provide an olive branch, not because they necessarily deserved it, but because clinging to resentment was like allowing weeds to overrun a garden. After giving it some thought, I took up my phone and dialed Mike's number. After ringing nonstop, it finally said, "Hello. This is Eva, Mike. I've been considering. Perhaps it's time for us to speak. Really communicate." After one or two beats, without saying anything, the line said, "Yeah, maybe it is." Though clumsy and stilted, the chat was a start, a seed sown in the direction of something new. I tried, so maybe it would grow, maybe it wouldn't. Meanwhile, I had to plan gardens, tend to dreams, and create a legacy that my grandmother would have been proud of.